Hi, I'm Tim. Welcome to Watchbox, and thanks for logging on. If you love this watch, email me, tmosso@thewatchbox.com. It's in the description below. Your purchase and pricing email question line for buying this or any watch you see on any Watchbox platform. Reach out to me directly. Email tmosso@thewatchbox.com. Today we're discussing the 2020 update of a 2019 model launch. This is the Audemars Piguet CODE 11.59 Chronograph, 41 millimeters in rose gold. This watch has the new 2020 spec gradient lacquered dials. On the first generation of the dials, we got the sense that with the exception of the high complications, a lot of the CODE 11.59 dials looked relatively flat, and though they were costly to produce, they didn't look their price. Now, with this gradient, we have a richness and a nuance that allows this watch to wear the rather large shoes set by historic Audemars Piguet high horology dress watches. It finally looks the part. So it's 41 millimeters in rose gold. In terms of the other dimensions, it's surprisingly thin at only 12.9 millimeters thick, 50 millimeters from lug tip to lug tip on the nose, and then the spacing between the lugs is 22 millimeters, so it has a nice broad stance, very contemporary broad lug spacing. As you can see, it is a full-size dress watch. It is not a sports watch, but it does wear rather like a sporty watch with its tachymeter, its chronograph, and its substantial wrist presence. I would recommend it for wrists no smaller than 15 centimeters circumference, as it is a large and insistent watch. Nevertheless, it is a relatively thin one, and despite the cantilever of the bezel, it will still fit beneath most dress cuffs, including tight dress sleeves. As with all aspects of the 11.59 since the beginning, the strap is a sizable, substantial, and pricey piece. It's slightly tapered. It is a navy blue, semi-gloss, large rectangular scale alligator leather with a folded edge, a monotone stitch. You can see it's got a little bit more bolstering as it closes in on the lugs as it swells to match the swell of the lugs. You'll also note that the strap is held in place by bars, which are themselves secured by hand-finished hexagonal bolts. So the bolts and bars system is very secure, much more so than spring bars. It's what you want to see on an expensive and heavy watch. And also those hexagonal bolts reference the bezel bolts of the Royal Oak. You'll also note that the faceting and contouring of the center case is designed to reference the octagonal form of the Royal Oak bezel. So a lot of references to AP's most famous watch here, all oblique, of course. And on the bottom, you can see it's gator on both sides, like high-end straps from the likes of Chopard, FP Journe, and others. We have gator on the top, small scale gator on the bottom, and the purpose of using gator twice rather than calfskin on the bottom is that it lasts longer. More expensive, but this watch is worth it. The buckle, as you will note, is unique to the model. It features a combination of faceting, satination, and polish, and as with the case, you could see that the strap is fixed to the buckle using those hex screws and solid bars. Now, rolling over the case, you can see that it's a bit more ethereal, airy, and prismatic than you might have suspected if you only saw the online photos that look like this. So the lugs are evacuated hollow, almost more like flying buttresses on a Gothic cathedral than lug structures on a case. You'll appreciate that there's satination on the tops and the sides, as well as a beautifully detailed transitional beveling, and you'll note that beveling is present on both sides of the lugs, including the inboard surface, where a lot of brands simply don't bother with detail. The mid case actually shrinks a little bit at the end and swells a little bit at its center, so it's got a little bit of a flow from end to end, tapering as the lugs taper. The mid case, of course, is faceted to remind you of the Royal Oak, but you can see it's also stepped inward to visually pair the mass of the watch, featuring two polished bevels. You can see that the crystal itself has a little bit of pronounced dihedral. It actually dips in the center and flares up at the edges. This is very expensive, not easy to do, and easily overlooked again if you've only ever seen studio shots of the watch like this. And you can see how it creates a little bit of a layered reflection that reflects the dial in ways that accentuate its depth, and it really is a very special dial. It uses a lacquer with a gradient to fade from basically metallic cobalt at center to almost black navy blue at the edge. You can see that the tachymeter is stepped up as a rehaut that visually unifies the bezel and the plane of the dial, the Rayhawk giving way to a flat dial that's lacquered and glossy, almost like enamel, with a matte blue finish for the sub-registers themselves, and each of those featuring a polished gold chapter ring. You'll also appreciate that the hands have a wonderful vaulted curve to them, almost like they're barrel-shaped over the top, something you would expect from a low-volume independent, but not necessarily from a mass manufacturer like AP. All of the indices, the Arabic numeral 12 and the AP logo, are applique 18-karat rose gold to match the case. You can see the watch features a hacking seconds function, so you can set it precisely. It also features a quick set system for the date, and you'll note that AP created a typeface that is exclusive to this watch. So all of these numerals were created by the AP art department exclusively for this model in this application. I particularly like the figure 8 of the 8. Now, the watch is more than all that you see here. You can see the chronograph in operation. It is a flyback chronograph, so you can reset and restart just like a pilot's watch. You have the ability to time 2 events that occur in rapid succession. With the tachymeter, you can gauge the speed of an object due to the 500 calibration and 1000 base. You're generally going to look at things moving very fast. Think cars and aircraft. Turn it all over, and we've got a movement that was new for 2019 with the code 1159, caliber 4401. The first generation automatic winding, fully integrated AP chronograph caliber. Now, there's a lot to love. Ceramic rotor bearings for efficiency and low maintenance. We have a free sprung balance with a full balance bridge for toughness. It beats away at 28,800 vibrations per hour. It is a column wheel chronograph, as you can see the column wheel, for crisp operation of the chronograph. But then it also, as you will see on the dial side, uses a vertical clutch, so there's no jump or stagger when you start the chronograph. It's very efficient. Because of the vertical clutch, you can leave the chrono running. It has a 70-hour power reserve, which is a substantial step up from the previous caliber 3120 based chronograph movements. Of course, this is also integrated. The 3126 with the Dubois Dupraz chronograph module was a modular chronograph that was quite thick and also not as broad, as this is a broad movement that fully fills the case back, properly sized for the watch. And of course, all of this 30 meters water resistant. Good looking. The movement is a combination of manual and machine finish. It has elements of both, as you'll also find on JLC, for example, and many watches from the likes of Zenith, Glasuta Original, and FP Journe. This is a very similar standard of finish. Reach out to T Mosso at thewatchbox.com for purchase and pricing details of the upgraded 2020 model of the code 1159.